Hey everyone, it's Michelle Gillmartin here, and today's Technique Tuesday is going to feature one of my favorite feet. I should say one of my favorite, they're all my favorite, but this one does so much. This one is called the edge joining foot. So it has a little blade that goes down the center of it. It's very similar to a stitch in the ditch foot, but the difference is the blade on this is not quite as deep, and it has some different things you can accomplish with it. You can do perfect top stitching because you can sit the edge of the blade up against what you want to top stitch. So I'm going to have a sample here of around a pocket as well as on a denim strap. You can join things together. You can also you can use it for quilt binding. You can use it if you're a bag maker and you like to make bags and you put zippers in your bags, you can use it also to top stitch down your fabric after you put the zipper in. So let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and snap the foot on. And the first thing I am going to do, I have pink thread here so everybody can see. The first thing I'm going to do is what you traditionally would do with it, which is join stuff together. So I have two pieces of batting that if I join the two pieces together, I have enough for my pretend quilt block. So I'm going to go ahead and put my foot down. And to do this, I guess I just put the cut button on. To do this, I want to use like a 3-step zigzag. Sometimes it's called a couching stitch. Sometimes it's called a serpentine stitch. On the Luminaire Solaris, there's one called stitch 1-15 on the utility stitch section 1, and that is called a 3-step elastic zigzag. Nothing elastic about this though, we just want to join them together. So I'm going to go ahead and start stitching. And let's adjust my stitch a little bit here. I can have it be a little wider and then I don't need it quite so long, so close, because I just want this to hold it together till I quilt something on top of it. So then I can just take this all the way to the end and I'll be joining these two pieces of batting together. And so there I go. I have my that section of batting sewn together. The other thing I can do with it is I can join two pieces of fabric together. So let's say that I have this piece and I want to join this piece together with a decorative stitch. Or they might be some quilt blocks. They could be anything. So I'm going to go ahead and put the foot down. I have one on either side. And this time I'm going to pick a more decorative stitch. There's a couple of them that work pretty well for this. I'm going to go ahead and start out with a traditional feather stitch, which, again, I'm still in the utility section, section 2, stitch number 2-12. And let me get a brighter color of thread here so you can see the stitching. Let's use the neon yellow. All right. Put my foot down. And I'm going to go ahead and start stitching. So this one comes back and forth, so the only thing you need to do is keep your eye on the little blade in the middle and make sure that that little blade in the middle stays between the two pieces of fabric. So that would be a decorative way of joining two pieces of fabric together. If you wanted a stitch that was a little bit more utilitarian, there's another one I use a lot for this type of joining of fabrics, and that is stitch in category number 3, stitch number 319, or in the Q category, there is one called Q28, which is very similar, but I also like Q-21. And that's just like a little zigzag that jumps from, a little V-stitch that jumps from one side to the other. So there's 2 different ways you can do that. I really love that look. So that would be what I would pick. By far, one of the easiest ways for me to get a straight line when I'm trying to do top stitching is to use a joining foot, because I can put that little blade, I can put it right up against the edge of whatever I'm top stitching, and then I can just move my needle to the position that I want, as close to the edge as I want. So I've moved my needle all the way position left, but I want this really, really, really on the edge. So I'm going to use my left-right shift, and I'm going to take that over to about 2, which is going to put me right smack on the very, very edge. And I'm going to lengthen my stitch a little bit. And you can see we have a curve to go around, so you just watch, keep your eye on the blade. And you can see how close I can get that edge stitching to the edge of that curve, because the blade acts as my guide. So both sides pretty even. The other thing I like to do is sometimes I like to top stitch over zippers. So if this was like a bag zipper, I might want to have a decorative stitch here because it actually holds the front and the back down. Mainly it holds the lining down, which is what I really like. So I'm going to go ahead and put the blade of the edge stitching right next to the zipper. And then I'm going to use a straight stitch that's all the way to the right. And if I did needle up, needle down, I think I can get a little closer than that. So let's do this at about 1, left, right shift with a right shift of 1. Oh, I think that'll be better. All right. So again, the blade is just going to stay against the edge of my zipper. And then I'm going to do my top stitching of my fabric using my edge or my joining foot with the blade right up against the edge. Look how nice and pretty that is. All right, so the other thing, I have 2 more things. Binding. Okay, so in this one, I actually brought the binding, I sewed the binding on the back, and I'm going to use this foot to guide as I stitch down part of the binding. And I'm going to stitch it down with this blue thread so that you can see it. But on the bottom, I'm going to just use a transparent thread so that you don't see the stitching. All right. So I'm going to start by getting the foot down. And I'm going to move my foot over. Let's see where I'm at now. Just want to get a couple stitches there. Okay, I'm going to move it to about the 1.75 position. Oh, that's perfect. All right, so now I'm just going to stitch from the front. When I get to the end, I'm going to hold that. I didn't even press this down. I just really just rolled it over. And there's my binding tacked down. And then on the back, I used a transparent thread so you can't really even see it. All right, so the last thing I want to show you is on top stitching, like on a strap or something. So I have a piece of denim here, and it's actually folded in force. So when I do something like this, I tend to up the needle to a little bit bigger size than what's in here, which is a standard 80. But I'm not really using a fat thread, which you could though. You could use a top stitching thread. You could use a jeans thread. I'm just, for the sake of showing how the foot works today, I'm just going to use the regular thread that I'm using. But I am going to increase my stitch length to about 4. And let's see where I want to put my needle. Oh, that should work. So I have stitch length of 4. I'm using just stitch -1-01, which is my right left needle position, and I've moved it 1.75 to the right. And I'm just going to keep my eye right here, and I've got a stitch length of 4. All right, so there's one side of my strap. And one thing I love to do with straps is I love to do it both sides going the same direction, because if you ever get straps that like twist when you get done sewing them, it's because you sewed them in opposite directions. You came down one side and then just turned down and went the other side. But if I actually put them both on the same side, my strap is not going to curl. And there we have it. Nice, straight top stitching. Hope you enjoyed this Technique Tuesday.